HR Basics is a series of short courses designed to highlight what you need to know about a particular human resource management topic. In today's HR Basics, we explore workforce planning, how to identify current workforce issues, forecast future needs, and implement a plan to ensure those needs are met. Workforce planning is the process of making sure that individuals with the right skills are where they need to be at the right time to meet a firm's current and future staffing needs. In many ways, workforce planning is an ongoing balancing act. Companies must balance the demand for labor with available labor supply. Workforce planning is dependent on labor supply and demand. Labor demand refers to the number and types of employees the company needs to meet its current and future objectives. Labor supply refers to the availability of current or potential employees to perform a company's jobs. Workforce planning includes identifying where you are, understanding your current workforce reality, where you want to go, identifying the vision for the future of the workforce, and how to get there, bringing the plan to reality through measurable workforce action. Using this process, you'll develop the core elements of a workforce plan. Strategy is the execution of an organization's mission, a bridge between the organization and its environment. Goals are a statement of desired outcomes towards which effort is directed to realize your workforce plan, and actions are the most important things that can be done to reach your stated workforce goals. Workforce planning requires attention on external workforce availability and characteristics of the internal workforce, which are impacted by a number of factors. The general economic cycle of recession and boom affect workforce planning. Factors such as interest rates, inflation, and economic decline or growth affect the availability of workers and should be considered when organizational and workforce plans and objectives are formulated. There is considerable difference between finding qualified applicants in 4% unemployment markets compared to 9% unemployment markets. As the unemployment rate rises, the number of qualified people looking for work increases, which often makes it easier for companies to fill some jobs. However, the people who are hired may receive lower pay and benefits because companies have more hiring options and leverage. When making workforce plans, employers must consider a number of geographic and competitive concerns. Significant changes in the workforce, both in the United States and globally, must be considered when examining the outside workforce during planning. Shifts in the composition of the workforce, combined with the use of different work patterns, have created workplaces and organizations that are notably different from those of the past. Workforce planning requires attention on internal workforce availability, which is impacted by a number of factors. Analyzing the jobs that will need to be done and the capabilities of people who are currently available in the organization to do them is the next step in planning. The needs of the organization must be compared to the existing labor supply as well as the potential labor supply available outside the firm. The starting point for evaluating internal workforce strengths and weaknesses is an audit of the jobs that are expected in the planning period. A comprehensive analysis of the current job provides a basis for forecasting what jobs will be needed in the future. Much of the data required for the audit should be available from existing staffing and organizational databases. An inventory of organizational skills and capabilities may consider a number of elements. The following are especially important: individual employee demographics, including age, length of service in the organization, and time in the present job; individual career progression, jobs held, time in each job, education and training levels, promotions and other job changes, and pay rates; and finally, individual performance data, including work accomplishment, growth in skills, working relationships, and so on. Employee turnover, which directly affects a firm's labor demand, includes the voluntary and involuntary termination of employees within an organization. The primary difference between the two types is whether the turnover is initiated by the company, involuntary turnover, or the employee, voluntary turnover. The second step in the workforce planning process is figuring out where you want to go, aligning human resource strategy with workforce planning goals and issues. To some extent, managers can control internal labor factors. Managers also have to evaluate factors in the external environment over which they have less control. These factors relate to the local labor market, economic conditions, and industry trends that impact the supply and demand of goods, services, and employees. Managers will take a vastly different action to address labor shortages and surpluses. A labor shortage exists when the demand for labor exceeds the available supply of it, or demand is greater than supply. In contrast, a labor surplus exists when the supply of labor is greater than the demand for it, so supply is greater than demand. Different business strategies, such as these, affect how quickly firms must cope with labor shortages and surpluses. At any point in time, some parts of a company may be facing shortages of employee talent, whereas others may have a surplus. Companies use replacement charts to identify potential replacement employees for positions that could open up within their organizations. Essentially, a replacement chart shows the employees who could potentially be moved from one job to another if vacancies occur. With such a system in place, a company is ready to make personnel changes on short notice. Succession planning is similar to using replacement charts, but focuses on identifying employees who might be viable successors for top management positions. As the name implies, succession planning involves identifying who is next in line for higher level jobs. It also requires the company to fill in information about any skill a potential successor needs to develop. A well-defined succession process is important for a variety of reasons. A third tool that managers can use to understand the internal movement trends of their workforces is a transition matrix. A transition matrix provides a model for tracking the movement of employees throughout an organization, rather than for a single job over a certain period of time. The third step of workforce planning is figuring out how to get there through identification and actions, including metrics. Remember that job design does the following: focuses on decisions about how jobs should be structured, ensures that job-related tasks and activities are performed in a way that has the most potential to add value to the company and its customers, and the best designed jobs in the world have no value if people are not in a position to perform them. In particular, a company's size and stage of development will affect the relative impact of labor shortages and surpluses, as well as who will carry out the company's workforce planning activities. Your responsibility for carrying out workforce planning activities will vary depending on the size and stage of development of your company. A company's organizational culture affects the different tactics firms use to deal with labor shortages and surpluses, as well as how their employees react to those tactics. Some companies have cultural values that prevent them from fully pursuing a particular course of action. Companies that are very paternalistic or extremely loyal to their employees might be hesitant to implement layoffs, even if doing so makes sense. Any discrepancy between the corporate culture of a firm and the workforce tactics its managers use is likely to result in a negative reaction by a company's employees. Productivity refers to the level of a firm's output, products or services, relative to inputs, employees, equipment, materials, and so forth, used to produce the output. A productivity ratio reflects the number of employees, labor demand, needed to achieve a certain output level of sales, production, and so forth. One of the benefits of understanding the productivity ratio is that it allows you to plan for different potential scenarios and reflect the growth or decline in the demand for your products. Strategic workforce planning usually covers a 3 to 5 year forecast period aligned to business needs and outcomes. It focuses on identifying the workforce implications, current, transition, and future of business strategic objectives, and includes scenario planning.